Hey guys, welcome to the Nic and Joe podcast, the show where we talk gaming news, online culture, and living in our modern tech-obsessed society. Each week, we cover topics ranging from digital ethics to finding acceptance and understanding on the internet. We tackle hard topics, ask tough questions, and try to get the conversation started on some of life's more difficult discussions. I'm your co-host, Nick, and I'm so happy that you're joining us.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Nic and Joe podcast. Nick, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing good. I'm actually doing really, really good. If it looks like, by the way, for anybody who is watching on YouTube, if it looks like I got in a fight with a lion, I didn't. I do suffer from dermatillomania, skin excoriation, whatever you want to call it. It's skin picking disorder. So I've got like just a little bit going on. So that's been not very fun over the past week. But other than that, I'm doing really fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Nothing really new to report with me. But I wanted to talk about, before we get into our main subject, which is a heavy one, I'll warn you guys today.
Yeah. Trigger warning, actually, right? Trigger warning. You know. Yeah, big. Talking of.
Yeah, big trigger warning. We're gonna the main conversation, and we're gonna be talking about maps, which is minor attracted people and pedophiles. So obviously, it's going to be difficult for some people to listen to. But before we talk about that, but I would encourage you to stick around for this. The PlayStation 5 did their big reveal, revealing the price points and some of the games that are going to be coming out for it. What did you think, Nick?
So I'm actually excited and suspicious at the same time. So they came out with two versions. I'm so sus. I really am. Because they came out with two versions, one with a CD drive, one without a CD drive. Now, the one without a CD drive is $100 cheaper. And I actually get all my games digitally. So for me, that's like perfect. Like, why would I spend $100 for a CD drive? I never use it. And then my first thought was like, let me guess, they're going to have like zero sales on digital copies. And like, they're going to make up for that $100 somehow. And I don't know if that's just me. I don't know if that's just because I've been playing a lot of Among Us and I'm like on the sus alert, but like, I don't know. I am kind of wondering if it is a deal or not.
Well, my opinion is that it's not a deal, and I'll tell you why I think that is. So at the minute we're still in this weird phase where we have physical and digital. Mm-hmm. And the weird thing is as a new game, the physical is normally cheaper. And obviously there's a good reason for that, because if it was all cheaper digital, nobody would buy the physical, and then there's no point making the physical at all. Mm-hmm. Or that, you'd get a few collectors, but it certainly wouldn't be worth the money to produce it and ship it. So I kind of feel like this generation, it might sting a bit being digital only, mm-hmm. but the next generation, it'll probably all be that way. Like they tried to do it with the PS4. That was their original intention, but people weren't happy. I always get my games physical when they're new, or not always, like if there's a sale on something. Yeah. But it's not usually on the AAA first party titles. It's not. Mm-hmm. Like, and they're normally pretty much always full price. So for instance, in the UK, it will be £50, aka $60 for a Nintendo game. And like, I just pre-ordered the Mario that's coming out tomorrow for like £8 cheaper, and I get the box and whatever. And it's like, over time, obviously that would add up. Knowing that there's going to be so many more people who don't have a choice about physical, whether that will change the online price, but I don't see it, especially with it being Sony. I don't know what I took away from it was that I'm kind of gutted actually, because I feel like the Xbox is the superior console if you're talking about the more expensive one. There's not a lot in it, but I feel like Xbox has always had more functionality as a system, and with regards to the stuff you could do with it and the links you can have. But it seems like PlayStation just always pays for those better exclusives. Yeah. And it's like, or owns the developers that make those better exclusives. So I'm kind of annoyed, because I think I want the Xbox, but I just know like those few exclusives, because I don't buy that many games for those consoles. Mm-hmm. They're going to be on PlayStation.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. There are a few exclusives that I know I absolutely want to play that are PlayStation only. And if it weren't for those, hands down, Xbox for me. I agree. I think Xbox has always been, for me, it's actually been more user friendly. I like the functionality of it better. I miss the OG like Xbox Live menu,
Oh,
if
yeah.
anybody else remembers that. Like, it was just, it's so nice. And then when PlayStation started doing online, like, I felt like it wasn't as intuitive.
No.
I don't know. I've just always kind of preferred Xbox, not like die hard, but I've always had a preference, and it's just those exclusives that get you.
You remember like the 360 days when you'd hit that Xbox button in the middle, you'd pause your game, and you could flick between those screens like a knife through butter. It was so simple. It worked so quick. You did that on the PS3 and it was slow, clunky. It's still like that on the PS4.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to wait for it. But I mean, I guess as an operating system, it's developed by Microsoft, right? So I guess that sort of makes sense, because Microsoft are quite a lot more experienced at operating system design, seeing as they have the most popular operating system in the world. So like, I guess we should kind of expect that. But I just feel like, even like back in the day, I can remember my friend getting Burnout Paradise on the original Xbox, and we ripped his CDs and we just play our own music over the top of the game. Like, instead of the game music, you would get. And he also got this special edition that like came with a camera and like the Xbox Live connectivity. We could like pose on the camera after we'd beaten like another team, just stuff like that. They just seem to be so much further ahead. And they've always had stuff like that. The connectivity is so much better. But it's those exclusives. Yeah,
it really is. So I think I'll end up getting a PlayStation just because I really want to play those exclusives. I'm going to be bitter about it. So those exclusives really need to be good, or
exactly. But there's nothing. I mean, I want to play Resident Evil 8, but there's always a chance the Resident Evil 8 will also be on PC. The last few have been on PC as well.
Yeah, I assume it probably will.
So, but then, you know, I mean, I've been let down quite a few times by later Final Fantasy titles. I like the look of the new one, but I don't know if I get drawn in. I probably will in the end, but I certainly won't be buying it, or haven't gone out to pre-order it today, because there's literally nothing. There's nothing that I want that's coming out anytime soon.
Yeah.
Like next year maybe, but not at the minute.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. Not pre-ordering, but probably will get one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. What did you think about the announcement about the PlayStation Plus sort of back catalog? They've listed a load of PS4 titles that you're going to be able to play through while you're subscribed. So there was Resident Evil 7 on there. There was like Uncharted 4, like a load. There's quite a few games. It was pretty good actually, but I don't know whether whether it's still going to be the same price for PlayStation Plus or whether it's going to cost more. It didn't say.
Yeah. So it's like a kind of built-in backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I am excited about that. Yeah, that's cool. And I think maybe if somebody's at the point where they've just become like got into their teens and perhaps haven't played these more adult games. Yeah.
If they get one, they've probably not played these games before. I mean, we probably forget about that because obviously we've seen so many generations of consoles now, but there was a time obviously when we were new to gaming and there was great games that had already come out that we didn't know about. But back then games were seen as obsolete when their time was up. They were like, it was out of date, it was done, on to the next thing. Whereas now people appreciate these older games. So I think I did think that was a smart move. We know that Xbox has got like this Game Pass, right?
Yeah,
so you're going to have,
which I think works with the PC as well, which is a super huge bonus.
Yeah, correct. But then if you've got a PC, would you need an Xbox?
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know.
But then, like I say, I like to have a console in the lounge just for when I'm like purely chilling, just on my sofa when I'm just gaming on my own. So I'm comfortable up here and like in my chair and stuff. I can get really comfortable, especially off screen, like tilting it back and stuff. But there's something about like this is also a workspace, like for us.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah.
So
and
it's like
scenery is nice, especially during quarantine when you only have so much change of scenery you can get.
Yeah, exactly. So I am disappointed. I just feel like I just feel like Microsoft have got so much clout and so much money. Why weren't they buying up Naughty Dog? Why weren't they buying up all these, all these other companies? When Sony were like, they bought like a big one like Rare, for instance. But like, apart from that, it's like there's Halo. I've never been interested in Halo. There is a lot of people that are, and it's a really popular series, but not for me. Forza was for a long time, like has been a long time the king of races, but again, it's not my thing. And if you don't like those two, what are you buying for? Maybe Gears of War if there's a new one, but there's no talk of that at the minute. And then you got God of War as well on the PlayStation. They announced that at the end, and it's literally like, that's a massive franchise. Resident Evil on there, massive franchise. Spider-Man, really popular game. The last couple have gone down really well. So
and in the back catalog, there's a lot of game series that I know a lot of people really love. Like Kingdom Hearts is a really big one.
Yes,
and the fact that by getting the new PlayStation, you'll have access to all of that. I mean, I know some people who would buy it just for Kingdom Hearts or just for Final Fantasy. So they have some, they will. Really nostalgic, really well-loved titles that you'll have access to that Xbox won't.
Yeah, it really upsets me that, Squaresoft was Nintendo's baby, and then it just became... I'm not complaining about the ones that came out on the PlayStation because they were amazing, but like I just feel like they lost their way big time since. And then again, if there's a chance of another Kingdom Hearts, a Kingdom Hearts 4, then it's going to be on the PlayStation. We know that already, like without even any announcements. So it's like, but I still see people arguing about on Twitter about these consoles. Literally, these fanboys, 95% of the games are exactly the same. Like, but it just so happens that some of those exclusives are just so big. Like, they are so big. Yeah, they really swing it. But it's going to be interesting. I don't think that the Xbox will fare as badly as last time, because when they released last time, it was really poor. And they were all outsold 10-1 by Sony. Like, it was ridiculous. It was embarrassing, actually. Yeah, it was embarrassing for them. But Sony did the right thing in getting the exclusives, I guess.
Yeah.
So today, as like we've already said, heavy subject. I decided that this might be an interesting topic to talk about. And it's probably something that, because people don't like to talk about it, I guess, because it's not a nice subject to grace. So I only became aware of this maybe like in the last couple of months, where I saw people writing MAPS, which stands for minor, as in under 16, minor attracted person, somebody who's attracted to minors. So you didn't know about this, did you, Nick?
I didn't. I just found out about it today. When you messaged me about it, I was like, what on earth is he talking about? And I did the quick Google search, found it on Urban Dictionary. And did not know. So I suspect that this is probably like a newer thing, and that there's probably a lot of people who don't know. So this is a really interesting podcast, I think. Yeah.
So from what I've looked at, there is some articles from like a couple of years ago. The furthest one that went back, I think, was 3 years old. But that was nothing in comparison to the more recent ones. Like, it seems like it's only become a thing recently. And it got my attention on Twitter through people who were really angry about this. So the idea behind this, this gender, if you like, I mean, I still don't know enough to be like, completely say, well, yeah, we can use that as a gender. So the idea is that these people out themselves as people who are attracted to minors. And the idea is, and they even have their own flag, by the way. The idea is, though, that they refuse to offend or molest.
Okay.
So that's supposed to be the idea behind it. And I kind of think, like, I don't know what you think, Nick, but I just feel like maybe we do need to make it easier for these people to find some form of, I don't know, counseling or something.
Absolutely.
Or whatever. But is that really necessary, especially knowing that there are, like, when it's in our nature, it's in our build-up, it's in our genes to like protect children for most people, right? Because we're wired up that way because they can't protect themselves. So it's so natural. That's why you think babies are so cute. That's what it is. It's that natural instinct. Oh, look at this! It's so cute, so precious. We must look after it. That's the way we're built up. Because if we didn't feel like that, hundreds of thousands of years ago, it would have been like, well, there's a baby born, but we don't care. That it's a natural. But it is. It's a natural.
He's a risk.
Yeah. What's this that's fallen out of me? I'm not having this. But like it's natural, right? So it naturally it gets people very angry. Like the thought of pedophiles gets people very angry.
Yeah.
Which is completely understandable, right? Like if I found out like somebody in my family has been molested, like I'd find that very, very difficult to keep cool about.
Oh yeah.
And this is how people get violent, and this is what happens to this is why people in prison who go to prison for these crimes are often, beaten within an inch of their life. Do you think that there's any kind of anything positive that can come out of announcing yourself in this way?
Yeah, I think it's difficult because I do actually feel empathy for pedophiles because I know it's something they can't control. It's something they were born with. Yeah. And there have been studies about, differences in the brain of a pedophile and a non-pedophile. And, it must be really hard to deal with that, knowing that it is a horrible thing that they probably wish they didn't have. And so I do want pedophiles to be able to get help without so much fear, because when you're so scared to talk about it, that's going to prevent you from getting help. So I do think that, a lot of like the death threats and stuff like that are not helpful when there are people out there who haven't done anything with a child and really do want help. There is certainly concern, and I know a lot of people are concerned, and even myself, there's concern about, is it so much normalizing it and then they'll be able to get help versus pride in it almost? Because I know like there was the hashtag map pride, and that's really difficult for me. Because, I do think you should care for yourself, and sometimes we're given struggles we don't want to deal with. I know I suffer, for example, with excoriation. I suffer with skin picking, and it sucks. And, I do the best I can. I seek out help, and I try not to hate myself for it.
Yeah.
But it would be really hard for me to say I have excoriation pride versus this is something I deal with and I'm working on it. And I don't know, just that kind of rubs me the wrong way. The pride, the fact that there's a flag to be like, hey, this is me. So it's rough. It's really rough because I do want them to be able to get some help, but the pride thing's hard. And then honestly, as somebody who's part of the LGBTQIA plus community, I do have a lot of problems with them trying to associate themselves as part of that community. There is a big difference in being attractive to different genders versus being attractive to different age groups. Yeah. So it's a tough one.
I find the flag absolutely strange because like, so like when I've been like to Pride with my friends, you fly that flag, whatever flag it is you choose, because you're proud of who you are, right? Yeah. If you're flying that flag and saying, oh, I don't act on these impulses, that's kind of weird, right? Because if you know it's wrong and you don't want to act on those impulses, why would you fly a flag? Because flying a flag is the most symbolic way, a logo or whatever you want to call it, of showing your passion or your pride. Yeah, absolutely. So I find the flag thing really weird, like really, really weird. I watched this fictional series about this guy who loses his son on holiday in France. Now, it's obviously very loosely based on what happened to Madeleine McCann in Portugal, who we all know about. And it was all about this paedophile ring and stuff like that. And it did show sort of people who were. It showed people who were part of the paedophile ring, no remorse and that. And then there was a guy in it who was like, he'd been part of this ring and tried to like put it behind him, and he was trying to seek help from different doctors, but he was having to go like behind the scenes, because if he went and told a doctor, like he'd be reported, right? Because he'd be a danger. Because if you're in danger of hurting yourself or somebody else, then that confidentiality goes out the window. Yeah. And that was the problem. And then and then I got thinking about it, and I remember speaking to friends once, and I sort of said the worrying thing is that like obviously you hear about local pedophiles or this happens or whatever, and it's like obviously it's shocking, they get sent to prison, whatever. You only really hear about the ones that get sent down, right? So that means to me there's two types of other people who are attracted to kids, basically. One of them is they're not getting caught. The group who are doing these things, you know, whether it's sharing pornography or, you know, engaging in actual physical molestation or anything like that. And the other is these people who feel that way, but then must know that it's not the right thing to do and don't act on it. So that's what that section of people is, who the maps would claim to be on the whole. I don't see like if you suffer from anxiety or depression, you're not going to be like, oh, here's my depression flag. Yeah. Like if you got some sort of problem, it's not the same thing at all, don't get me wrong, but just trying to look for a decent analogy. But like if there's a problem that you want to fix and you don't like it, you don't fly a flag. Seek help. Yes, of course. You don't want to walk around flying a flag saying, yeah, I'm proud of this, because it's not that you should be ashamed if you are trying to do something about it, but it's also something that you don't want to shout from the rooftops, because it's not a positive message, you know?
Yeah, certainly. And I think that's the thing that gets me kind of hung up on all of this. You know, there's plenty of symbols and there's a lot of symbology for like, hey, this is a group of people who need to be recognized and understood and given compassion and need help. But the pride is really where I'm getting caught. I don't really like the idea of pride around this, because I do think it's something that somebody needs help for. Just like if somebody were a serial killer, you know, yeah, something's wrong in their brain. That's tragic, you know, that they were born with something like that. But you wouldn't want pride around that subject. Like I think there are just certain subjects where you don't want pride. And I do think it's very different from saying like, I'm gay and I'm proud, or I'm lesbian and I'm proud. And that's not hurting anyone. And I think that's the biggest
yeah, exactly.
Like regarding the LGBTQIA plus community and trying to integrate maps into this, you know, for one, like I said, it's gender versus age group attraction. And for two, it's consenting adults versus someone who cannot consent, who has been proven to not be able to consent. So yeah, just the pride thing really rubs me the wrong way. Do we need more understanding? Do they need more help and resources? Yes. Should they be getting death threats when we really need to like point them to resources that can help them? You know, no, but the pride just, I don't know.
And it's funny because that program I was talking about really made me think, because perhaps before that, you know, I would have been one of the angry mob. I'm not saying I'm going to go around and be violent with people. Yeah. You know, physically violent, but verbally violent, maybe, you know? Yeah. And I probably was, especially when I was younger. And that's kind of, I feel like, although I completely understand it, because we are built that way, at the same time, like that's not going to help. Like that's really not going to help. If people are trying to be open, but certainly like we can't allow this sort of pride, this pride thing on the back of what I said earlier as well about, obviously everyone knows, like, one, when they get to our age, they know of one or maybe even a couple. If they've grown up at like the area I lived in, there's been two, right? There's been two openly prosecuted from the village I live in, you know, with a few thousand people in it. So if those people are getting prosecuted, in fact, three, those people are getting prosecuted, which they should be, for each one of those, how many of them are there that aren't getting prosecuted? Because of the stigma, and I'm not saying the stigma is necessarily a bad thing. Like we have like fairly accurate statistics now for like how many people are gay, How many people identify as trans? And obviously the statistics get more and more accurate as people are more comfortable with talking about who they are. But like, I don't think there's any sort of statistic or even thought about like how many people feel that way, like they're attracted to children. Like, what are the statistics? How could we I don't think we could even know, because like people don't say.
Yeah, certainly.
So like you could be like anywhere. It's horrible to think about, but there must be so many around wherever you go, and you can't live your life in fear. You can't live your life in fear of that, and where you're taking your kids and stuff, of course. But it's such a difficult subject because people don't want to talk about it. But I feel like we have to. Yeah. Like we do have to if we're going to get anywhere. There's
a difference between pride and awareness. Like I feel like if it was more like map awareness and these are the resources you can reach out to, and like, you know, I know it's rough, but like get help. Like I feel like that has such a different message. And I know that you mentioned that they don't harm children or intend to act on it. But then my question becomes, okay, but are they viewing child pornography? Because obviously that is.
Yeah, of course. That is harming them.
Yeah, that's harming it. I don't know. I don't know enough about the community. I don't know if that distinction is made. But I just.
Yeah, we don't.
I don't.
Yeah, because obviously, for that material to be made, somebody's getting abused, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah, and they're contributing to that. I don't think there's any argument about that. But I wonder if for some people, because we know that it's usually what happens is, you know, either people are done for child porn or whatever, like, and they take their computer away or whatever, and they go to jail, or they are in a position of trust. Yeah. Whether that is as a family member, which is the most common, I believe. I know this. Yeah, well, I know this because of like, so my mum's a nurse, but she took a couple of years out to work with social workers, like out in the world, basically, just as something different, because she'd always been a pediatric nurse. She found that hard, actually. For most of her career, she's the matron on the ward, which is for the kids with cancer and leukemia. It's a very difficult job, but she's been professional and she's handled it. It's not easy, but she's handled it. But after doing a couple of years of this safeguarding, and seeing how some of the kids were treated, and these kids weren't dying, but it was obviously awful. She couldn't do that. She's gone from, she worked with terminally ill kids to, these kids that are having a rough time, they're not dying. And she just said, I couldn't do it anymore. And most of the time it was by a family member. The abuse was conducted by a family member. Which is the most heartbreaking thing. So what I'm getting to on this point is there was a famous Welsh rock star from a band called the Lost Prophets who was done a few years ago for conspiring to have sex with a fan's child. So weird and disgusting. And like he's in prison for a long time, multiple counts. I wonder, because I went to see them when I was like 13. Yeah. And I often wonder, like, when they were small, when they were playing in my local city to like a couple of hundred people, to going on to being a worldwide, I wonder if for some people it's like they get a certain fame or they get a certain position of power, and it's almost like they haven't been that way or attracted to minors, but they just start to think they get some sort of complex where they just feel like they can do what they want. Yeah, I do certainly think that's some of the cases, at least. We know that there's been issues with pedophilia in Hollywood. We've even seen that some bigger Twitch streamers have done some grooming. So I do think that's certainly a degree of it. And when I was looking into pedophilia, I believe the DSM said that it's classified as pedophilia if it's something that lasts for more than 6 months or causes, like, you act on it, or it causes a lot of internal distress. But I do think there are some people who maybe weren't born pedophiles, but are kind of searching for that next thrill or, to victimize someone. Because I know there was a difference between victimizing someone just because you had the opportunity of being a person in power versus actually being a pedophile. And again, we don't have statistics on how many is either way. But I do think there is a degree of that. And I also think, it's so weird to think about, but child brides are still a big thing in other countries. When you look up the statistics on the number of underage children who are being married off, it's
phenomenally high. I did not know it was that high. I actually saw something a few weeks ago, awareness post on this. And that's another thing that's kind of concerning about having this map pride. There are countries where that's totally okay. And people, you know, are proud of having, you know, an underage child as their wife. And I think there just really needs to be a distinction between like, that's not okay. There should be no pride around this. This is a serious issue that still happens in many parts of the world. And we don't want to start having it, you know, happen anywhere else. We don't want to make it easier or more normalized. Because
I guess we want to talk about it as well, but we don't want to get it. We don't want it to get to the point where people are scared to talk out about it. Because if people turn around and suddenly start saying, because it would only take like a handful of people, probably from the LGBTQIA plus community, to say, actually, yeah, why can't they have their flag? And then it would be like, oh, yeah. And then people would feel under pressure. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that there's anybody in the community that feels that way. I'm talking hypothetically, of course. But we know there are idiots and people with different views in every community. We know that. And then people start to be like, then it starts to become contentious, and people don't want to talk about it. Like the trans sport thing.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like, and I looked again because it was brought to my attention about J.K. Rowling, because she's just bought a book. She's bringing a book out that's been reviewed, and so I did a bit of research on this last night because I thought it was absolutely crazy. She's brought a book out. Obviously, we've already spoke about what's happened before about people saying that she's been transphobic because she was speaking about sex biologically and talking about male and female. She never dismissed people that wanted to be trans. Yeah. But there was just pitchforks straight away. And in my opinion, it was blown up out of like this. There was no slurs, you know, there was no these people, there was nothing like that. And she was actually standing up for women as well. She wanted to stand up for just straight women. And then it led to her being called a TERF. Which is like the radical, one of the radical feminists that fights and says people shouldn't be trans because, you know, we're women and you don't know what it's like to be whatever. Yeah. She's bringing out this book which is written under a different name, a male name actually. And so the story was, you know, and this was brought to my attention to me on my Discord, and they were saying, oh, she's written a book about and talking about trans people negatively. And I was like, I just couldn't believe it. So I checked it out, and it was like, in this book, there's a serial killer or a murderer. And at one point in the book, never mentions they're trans, by the way. In one point in the book, the killer dons a female sort of styled coat and a wig to sort of protect their identity. That's it. That's the outrage. You can look for the hashtag and Google it now about J.K. Rowling, and there are loads of people, a lot of them in the LGBTQIA community as well, who are saying this, you know, let's burn all the books. She needs to stop. We need to get a publisher to drop her. And I'm like, what they're saying is that she is making out that trans people do this, you know, are serial killers. And it's like, what? It doesn't even mention trans. They just use it as a disguise. They just use it as a disguise. But even if they were, like, if you have like a series of films or books, and you don't have any different ethnicities in them, people will call you out for it, right? Yeah. So even if this was a trans serial killer, well, why the fuck not? Because like trans people exist, right? Or a gay serial killer, you know, or you know, whatever. Like, it's a character. It's a character as well in a fictional book, which is art, right? And people are going nuts about it. Like, I'm really struggling to understand that. And I feel like it's those minority of people who are getting the pitchforks. Well, there's a lot of people on the back of this who are not a minority, who are not reading the article or don't care to actually read about what's actually about what the book's actually about, because none of them have even read it yet because it hadn't come out. But all the proper journalists are like, what? well, we've read it. Like nobody's read it. The book's not even out. And you are like, there's a guy on one of our early morning shows. I'll send you the video after, Nick. This guy who's arguing about it. The host goes to him, have you read the book? And he's like, no. It's like, you've not even read the book and you're coming on national television to say why she should be cancelled. I feel like it's those kind of people that would take this flag, this, and then start pushing it. And that's when it becomes a problem, like a big, big problem, because then people start to say, whoa, maybe I can't talk about that then. Yeah. But we're not talking about people who choose to dress a different way, like at certain times, because like they're saying, well, that's not trans anyway. That would just be a transvestite if it is just dressing in women's clothes. That's completely different, you know. But people who are, you know, have a certain gender, they didn't ask for that. Yeah. I guess what I'm getting at is, why are we saying you can't be part of this or you've got to be pro this because you choose to be that way? If we're going to be accepting of all genders, which seems to be going that way, then why not just forget all this? You've got to be in and you've got to be out, because it seems like that just rubs people up the wrong way. It's like you've got to be inclusive, but you can't be exclusive either. Yeah. And it's a real hard time for like Hollywood, although Hollywood needed a big shakeup. We know that. Yeah, absolutely. With regards to, like you say, the grooming, the race, everything like that. You know, not just even the grooming of children, you know, the grooming of young women, especially in Hollywood, you know, everything that's come out, it's absolutely vile. Like the whole thing is like, the whole thing's really, really seedy and horrible. Like, but like, so we're getting that shakeup and that's right. But then there must be, like, you know, people who are good producers and directors who are like, I don't, you know, I've got this person for this role, but you know, they're not. It's another white person, or now it's, you know, it's another black person. I don't have enough Asian people, and with, you know, I've got to worry about representing. I think as long as you're kind of making some kind of, you know, conscious effort, and you're not employing people just because or hiring people because of the color of their skin, I don't see why it would be an issue and you need to push it. Yeah. I'm not saying that it's not good to have more ethnicities in films, you know, and on TV and stuff. Of course it is. But are we at the point where just people are scared, just doing things because they're scared and not for the right reasons? Yeah. And if they're scared and they start to avoid things, this is where I see the problem with this maps thing. And there's a lot of outrage that I've seen in the LGBTQIA plus. I think rightly so, because they don't want to be associated with that. And why would you? Absolutely not. You wouldn't. But again, and I understand why. But again, there's a lot of anger, and I understand why. But then, especially from that quarter, because you're like, no, get away from me. You're going to talk to somebody, don't talk to me, because then it makes it look like, you know, you're part of this and I don't want part of this. So I understand that. It wouldn't be like me, like talking to somebody who claims to be a MAP. That'd be different to if it was somebody in the LGBTQIA plus. They have a lot more to lose, you know, on that side for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been talk of gays predominantly being pedophiles, and you know, there's talk about being homosexual is wrong. It's against nature, which it's not. You know, we've proven that there are plenty, I think like 400 species who practice homosexual behavior. Yeah, but there's already been such a battle around, oh well, being gay is a mental illness, you have to go to conversion therapy, it's something wrong in the brain. And then to try and associate something that is truly a problem, that does have a victim, that, you know, they were born that way, and there is a difference in their brain, but it's not okay. It's not two consenting adults. It's not a preference of gender. It's a preference of age that does have a victim. I see so much damage in trying to join that community. And I know myself and a lot of others are like, no, like this is not part of our community. But, you know, you're going to have those people who already did not like the LGBTQIA plus community who are now going to latch onto this as proof that, well, this is why gays
are horrible and shouldn't be allowed to adopt and shouldn't be allowed to exist. Like they are going to latch onto this. So the fact that, you know, even if it's not accepted into the community, which I suspect it won't be, and I hope to God it won't be, but just the fact that they have their flag now and they're trying to integrate into this community, it's going to cause a lot of problems for so many people. And that really sucks. That really sucks.
Yeah, I feel like if you're listening to this and this is the first you hear of it, I don't think it'd be the last that you hear of it, because I feel like it's just getting a bigger and bigger talking point, and it'll be blown up by people as well who are angry and don't want to be part of that.
Certainly.
But again, the reason I fear this subject is because it does make people so angry, which I've said time and again. I completely understand why. And I empathize with those people because I know I felt the same way. But we have to try and be rational and understand that unfortunately these people do exist. Yeah. Like they do. And if they are willing to, they don't have to be like, walk around, like say, oh, hey, I'm this person, or fly a flag or anything like that. But if they're willing to sort of understand why it's not okay, and why they can't form these relationships, and they get some kind of help for it, because maybe the fact is you're probably never going to be able to change that in them. Yeah,
that's I think like, the overwhelming consensus.
It's like you're you get attracted to different men and women. I get attracted to women. You know, a gay man is attracted to another man, and that's never going to change, right? Like it's not. I mean, there's a spectrum, like we've talked about before. Yeah. But like, it's never going to change. So I mean, the therapy, I guess, would be to help them deal with that, right? Yeah. Maybe explore avenues which would help them, you know, put that aside, because and I mean, a lot of these people as well, I think, being in that situation themselves, like I saw an interview with a guy who was saying he wasn't claiming himself to be a map, but he's very bravely showed his face on camera, but he was like, I don't want to be like this, but there's nowhere I can go. Like there's nobody I can talk to. Yeah. We got to be accepting that these people need people to talk to. Like it's only right. Yeah. You know, as much as we disagree with their feelings, we can't change those feelings, and they're still human beings. And if they really don't want that, if they really don't want to be that person, then we got to help them. Yeah, absolutely. But the flag thing and like having to announce it, like why? I don't even know why you'd want to. Like, yeah, because these people know. These people know, like they know how society feels. Like, because everyone sees the outrage, you know, when a celebrity's caught out for abusing children or whatever. It's going to be big. I only see the conversations getting louder about this. Yeah, absolutely. I do certainly hope they change their terminology. And I don't know, maybe they do feel pride in this, but I do think, you know, if it was MAP awareness, like the fact that this exists and it sucks and we don't act on it, and, you know, we're getting help, like that's so different from pride. I really think it's the pride that's just absolutely. There's also concern for me that by having pride and by promoting pride in something that is not really something you should be proud of, you know, there's MAP pride, and is that going to leak out to sort of other problematic things such as zoophilia? Because I did see zoo pride, and zoophilia is the attraction to animals. And just seeing that, and then seeing that they both have flags, and there is worry, you know, on one hand, you want them to be able to seek help. You want to be able to talk about it without them getting death threats. Right. But the pride thing, we don't want to normalize this behavior either. We don't want there to be pride in this. I really just think changing the terminology to awareness might be better. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Because normally if you want to talk about something that's bad, it's awareness, right? Absolutely. Like it's not the same at all, but you'd say like AIDS awareness, you'd say cancer, you know, any illnesses, you talk about awareness. You don't go, oh, let's celebrate this. no, it's bad. We don't celebrate it, but we talk about it and do our best to help and find a way around this. But yeah, awareness is a much better word. I feel like there must be a spectrum, like we've spoken about before. So if you claim to be a MAB, does that mean you are exclusively attracted to children?
Yeah, I did actually do some research before the podcast because I was kind of curious about all of this. And so you can be a pedophile and attracted to minors while still being attracted to adults. You can be a gay pedophile. You can be a straight pedophile. You can be a bisexual pedophile. So it's certainly, having that attraction to children doesn't exclude other sexual feelings. It can be that you're only attracted to children, or maybe it's not. And then there are also different age ranges of attraction. Some people are attracted to, I think it was hebephilia, where you're attracted to someone going through puberty. And then there's some people attracted to, I think pedophilia might be younger. Like there's definitely some differences.
Jeez, much.
Yeah. There's a lot more to it than seems, and I think,
I mean when you actually think about it and put it like that, you think there must be, because the difference between a 4-year-old and a 14-year-old is massive. Still can't consent, of course, no doubt about that. But we know that in cases where people are done for statutory rape, so where they were too young to consent, but they are teens or very close to being at the age of consent. Yeah. Sentences are obviously less severe than if it is a 5-year-old child, of course. Yeah. But I mean, of course, none of it okay. But those lines and all the different ages, and it makes it so complicated then. Yeah. Because we're only just coming to properly understand how adults see each other, how they feel about each other, and what they feel how their genders are, and how they're attracted. We're only just starting to properly understand that because people are starting to talk about it. And that goes for everybody. It doesn't matter which gender you are, because you're only one. And now there is really specific genders, right? So you're one of the, well, you might not be, you might be another gender that we haven't found yet, or whatever, but you're one of those many. So there are all the other ones that you don't know because you're not that gender. So we're only just understanding that. And I think it's important that we keep pushing to understand that, so that we can make those distinctions. And then when we're coming to understand these people who claim to be MAPs, well, we need to understand exactly what it is. Yeah. And we're only going to do that by encouraging them to talk. Yeah, absolutely. That's how we're going to understand it. And we need to understand, who's the most at risk, because we've got to protect these children. So we've got to find out who's the most at risk. And on the back of that, Nick, I came up with this, because we spoke about mods in streams and discords and our duty of care. I came up with this idea. I don't know whether people think it's a good idea or not. In my Discord, there are many people who are minors. Yeah. Most of them aren't. I have a duty of care, which I know and we've discussed. Absolutely. Should people like me, who potentially speak to minors every day, have a clearance check? Yeah. Just like I would as a teacher, just like I would as a carer, working with children, just like working. I had one when I worked at a theme park, had to get we call them CRB checks, I think, in this country. Yeah. When I worked at a theme park, had to have a check because, when I was 16, because it's like, whoa, you're going to be, I didn't even think, it's like, I've got to have a check. I thought, in my head, I'm like, I'm 16. I'm almost still a kid myself, but it makes sense. Because there's going to be loads of kids there or minors on their own, with their friends. Yeah. The only thing I dislike about it is that I don't know how it works in the States, but in ours, it's owned by a load of retired police chiefs who are making a shitload of money out of it. Yeah. But I do think the idea, obviously, the system is good. There's nothing wrong with that. And anybody, who cares about protecting kids would have no problem taking one of those tests. Absolutely. Or applying. So but it's not a ridiculous amount of money. And I feel like, should it be a thing as streamers or content creators or whatever?
Yeah.
That every year we have to have one of these checks.
Yeah. I don't think that's a bad idea. Like you said, anybody who obviously is against harming children or having sexual relations with children, like I would have no problem with having a check. I think most people would have no problem with having a check. And, I think it will also help, especially if you're a family friendly channel, to be like, hey, look, like I've gotten my check, like everything is okay. I think a lot of parents would feel more comfortable with that. I also actually think it'd be really cool to see streamers talk more about kind of safety around this, like as a child,
Yes.
Like, hey, just so you guys know, if somebody talks to you this way, not cool. Like, let me know if anybody who is in my Discord approaches you with something weird, or just like kind of raising general awareness, because, children, they aren't aware when they're being groomed. And if you have people in your community who are adults and you're a family friendly channel, there is like that potential, right? There is that potential that one of them are there because they know that that's where kids are going to frequent. So I think it'd be really cool to see streamers maybe talk a little bit more about this, or say, hey, if somebody approaches you and makes you uncomfortable, like message me right away and know that there are resources, or message one of my mods. I've talked to them about how to handle this. I think that would be really good. Where as streamers, I feel like we're all starting to talk about things that we're passionate about and raise awareness on the subjects that matter to us. Yeah. And I'd like to see that be included, especially considering that we have had issues of grooming within the Twitch community.
We have, yeah. That's a really, really good point. And probably something that's just come to mind on the back of you saying that is I should probably have I have rules that you're supposed to read when you go into the Discord, right? Just like we do on the channel. I should have I should probably have like a separate set as well. Yeah. For people who are, under 18 or 16 or whatever, saying, hey, look, you're a teenager, you're above 13 and you're welcome to be here, of course. But, I have a duty of care to look out for you. If anybody talks to you or messages you in any way that you think's inappropriate or makes you feel uncomfortable, just tell me instantly, and it'll be dealt with, completely privately, and just covering all those sort of bases, and making it clear that, because I guess at the minute, say in my Discord, for instance, if somebody was feeling like that and say they were 14 years old or whatever, they might think, they know I'm pretty open about talking about many different things, and I'm very, very passionate about things being right, but maybe they wouldn't be comfortable with saying, because it might be somebody that I talk to or is prolific in the stream. Yeah. They might feel like, well, I can't say that to Joe because he'll just dismiss it. So yeah, I think that's something I'm going to take from this going forward. But yeah, there are known people who've been outed or convicted as pedophiles still streaming. Yeah. Which it's like, yeah, exactly. So, and
I think that's why awareness is so important, because you have children online, which is like the place that I suspect grooming is more likely to happen. I feel like it's going to be a lot easier to approach a child online. And I just think that having more awareness on platforms like Twitch or Discord or wherever, could it have prevented some of these cases? I mean, I think probably, yeah.
I think so. I mean, it would never have stopped everything, but if we could have prevented just like a few kids, from harm, then it would have been a great thing. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's something I'm definitely going to include in my Discord, and I will consider getting the check. Just, it's not like, oh, I've got nothing to hide. Look, it's just that sort of peace of mind. Yeah. And if we can encourage more people to do it, it may get to the point where it's like, well, why won't you have one? Yeah. People are still free, of course, but like, at least that way you could maybe feel, I mean, it doesn't stop. Somebody who's got that check doesn't mean they're not categorically not a pedophile. You don't know. Yeah. But like, at least we're going to stop convicted pedophiles that way. Certainly. If you had to have it, but I don't know, like, but definitely I think maybe a section, specifically for minors, and then just maybe in general, anybody who's getting any sort of abuse that feels, make sure that they know they can talk to me or whoever, and one of my trusted mods, and we can sort it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have these groups in America that are like, so we have like Facebook groups here, and I watched a series, which I'll talk about in a minute, who are like pedophile vigilantes, like pedophile vigilante groups?
Knowing America and how much we love our guns, I'm going to say probably.
Well,
I wouldn't be surprised.
So a few years ago, there was this program for Channel 4, which is one of the main big UK broadcaster. And it was called Stinson the Paedophile Hunter. And he was one of the original paedophile hunters. And basically what he did was he would go online, pose as a whatever, 14-year-old girl, 10-year-old boy, in chat rooms. He'd gather evidence on these people who messaged, and then he'd go and confront them. And then he'd give all the evidence to the police. Now, he was really good. He used to get really angry, but he was really good at, he knew the law. He obviously came from like quite a dysfunctional and, a poor background.
Yeah.
But he was very intelligent, and he knew the law inside out with regards to what he could do and what he couldn't do, because entrapment in the UK is illegal. Yeah. Technically. But there are many places I don't know all the ins and outs of the states, but I know there are certain places that it's perfectly legal. Like when that police officer caught George Michael in the toilets in LA, like it's legal in a lot of places. You can't do that here, or you're not supposed to, but it's a bit of a gray area because the police prosecute these people. Now, obviously, in this instance where he poses, they've technically not done anything wrong, but they are getting done for like the conspiracy. Yeah. Like the conspiracy, like they're conspiring to meet, because that's how he gets them in the end, because he meets them. But these people will send them, inappropriate videos, messages, whatever, as you can imagine. I kind of feel like, and this is one of those shows where people watch it and they get really angry because they're like, yes, this guy's doing a good job. And I kind of agree, but at the same time, I kind of don't. It's a weird one because I'm like, yeah, he's probably stopped them doing that to somebody else. Like quite possibly. How do you feel about that? So there are, and I'll tell you another story in a minute, but how do you feel about like these vigilante groups and these people? Let's assume that all of them are acting within the realm of the law as well. Yeah.
It's difficult because I know like there are so many problems with entrapment, but and obviously they haven't committed a crime yet that we know of, but yeah. It's clear that the intent was there. It's clear that if a child had met them, that would happen. And even if it is a gray area, just knowing that you're preventing that, it's like, yeah, we all kind of want to stretch the law on that. I think we all kind of want to turn a blind eye and be like, okay, like maybe a little bit of a gray area, but you could potentially, save a victim, So it's a difficult one.
I feel like I don't know the law inside out with regards to entrapment, even like in the States, let alone let alone in my own country, let alone the States. But some of these gangs maybe do end up getting violent, and then somebody ends up getting hurt, and then the case is blown anyway. Yeah, because of what's happened, and it's like, shouldn't why? And then the point is it just lack of resources is why the police aren't catching these people in the first place? Yeah. Or if the police do it, is that then entrapment? Yeah. But, because it was brought to light by somebody else who is a civilian, is that okay? I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't feel uncomfortable with that happening so long as the law's followed, because obviously I think it's great to bring a paedophile to justice. Absolutely. Who has the intent of harming, minors. Yeah. So I used to work with a guy, like, I won't reveal his full name, but his name was Mark. And I used to call him Jurassic Mark because he looked like a dinosaur. Seriously. But anyway,
see this guy.
I don't know if I could. Well, I'll send that. Remind me to send the videos. In fact, I'll write it down because this is.
I'm just imagining like a velociraptor and like a hat that says like Mark on it.
Velociraptor is the one. Velociraptor is the one. And where we worked, you did have to wear hats. So his name was Jurassic Mark. I used to call him Jurassic Mark. I don't think he knew that, but that's what I christened him. And I worked with this guy I was at this factory for like 3.5 years, like from leaving the corporate world where I was doing retail. Mm-hmm. And I decided I was sick of that. I worked at this factory, and this guy, Mark, sound guy. Like, there's a lot of banter in there. It's just heavily testosterone fueled place, as you can imagine. A lot of those places are. Very few women work there. There was a lot of banter that probably went too far sometimes, but like certainly nicknames like that were common. And I left there obviously years ago now, and one of my ex-colleagues sent me this video on Facebook one day, and I didn't understand what was going on. And there's this guy stood at the door, and then I realized it's Mark. And then I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, I didn't recognize the group it was from.
Yeah.
But it's basically a set of these Facebook vigilante who have caught hundreds of people in this, in like, let's say a 50-mile radius. Mm-hmm. A lot of people. They confronted him on the doorstep to say, that girl or whoever it was that you've been talking to. Yeah. That's me. And at first he's like, tries to deny it. And the guy is like, I'm not sure. See, this is the thing. They go to get the confrontation before they send it off to the police. I don't know where I stand on that, because obviously the police will deal with it either way. I don't know what they get out of the confrontation. I feel like maybe it's satisfaction for them to confront them after the work they put in. So maybe that's what it is. And like, the guy starts saying to him, don't try and deny it, because I'll out you in front. I'll start shouting and I'll out you in front of all your neighbors. And then he sits down on the step of the front door and just breaks down and just admits everything, absolutely everything. Yeah. This guy is in his late 40s, married, children. He'd had that job at that place for over 20 years. Good prospects. He wasn't just one of the grunts like I was there at the time, and it was really surreal. Yeah, to see somebody that you like. I'd heard about people around here, but I didn't know them. Like, I knew who they were, but I didn't know them. Like, I knew this guy, and I spoke to him, and I like laughed and joked with him. And of course, you never know, but it really hits home when somebody really you spoke to, and you would think, you don't just leave your kids with anyone, but I trusted that guy. Like, I completely trusted that guy. And the thing is, I probably wouldn't have left my young kids with him. Mm-hmm. But like, say there was a family day, which they had at those places, and I went, I had a daughter who was like 14, and I went off to do something. Yeah, I probably would have trusted him. Yeah. Like, for however long it was. And that might have been all it took for him to start, to sow a seed. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's so scary, because you don't want to live your life this way, like worrying like that. Yeah. But it's scary. It really, really scares people. And I'm not saying this to try and scare people. I just want people to be vigilant is all. Yeah. Well, you have to be aware. You have to. Yeah. I was talking to a friend about this the other day, because I actually had an experience where back when I was like, I don't know, like 22, I was working as a waitress somewhere. Right. And there was this other guy there, really popular guy. Everybody loved him, played soccer. I think he was maybe going to play soccer professionally, just really cool guy. And we even flirted with each other, like, while we were there, and nobody would have ever guessed. Years later, I think it was like a decade later, I found out. Well, I guess not a decade, because it hasn't been a decade, but years later, he was arrested for child porn, and never would have known it. Just a guy that everybody loved, really cool, really popular. And that was, you're right. It's very surreal. You're like, what? Okay, wow. Never would have known, never would have thought that. And I think it's important to, keep that in mind, because
yeah, you can't live your life in fear, but especially before a child can talk, sometimes people put their children in daycare and it's like, okay, maybe wait till they can talk, make sure you're talking to your children about these things. Maybe we need to talk more on Twitch and online about like, hey, if somebody says this to you, that's not okay. Just raising more awareness about the fact that, especially online, you don't really know anybody inside and out. Even my husband, Snack Daddy, I mean, obviously, like, I trust him, but like, you never know anyone inside and out, right? Like, there are people who have been married to serial killers. So which is holy cow. But I just think it's really important to be aware that, if you're uncomfortable, if you ever feel like a vibe is off, or even if you don't, if you're just like, I don't think I want you watching my child, or maybe this isn't okay to say, that's a valid feeling. And I do think we need to be really aware of the fact that it could be anyone, not to sound like really, like it could be anyone, but but
you
never know.
Just be careful. Yeah. Just be careful. Just be vigilant. Just try and just don't, just like if somebody acts a bit weird or says something just slightly strange, maybe just think about it a little bit more. Maybe it is just something that's nothing, but then see if there's more of that. It's funny what you say about, well, not funny. It's interesting what you say about, talking to kids and saying, well, if somebody does this, it's not acceptable. Mm-hmm. I understand that from primary school teachers, aka elementary school teachers that I've spoken to, that there is a lot more of this now.
Yeah, which is great.
Which is great. Because when I was a kid, I can remember this really vividly because we had this thing called the Never Never Club. Okay. And it was like, it's so dumb now, like looking back, but it was basically like never talk to strangers, never, which is, obviously, but like, I don't know how successful that is, just saying, don't talk to strangers.
Yeah. Well, we know Dare's not successful.
Yes. Yeah, we do. We know Dare's not successful. This Never Never Club, it was more about the cool stickers that you got in this pack saying never, never and stuff on them. But like it's come so far. And I guess that's since more stuff's come to light, I guess, especially since the internet, people are getting caught, right? Yeah. There was a guy who got caught. I remember some years ago on one of the programs I watched, and they didn't catch him for years. There was this prolific paedophile, head of a paedophile ring, proud of the fact of what he was doing and the content he was sharing, and he was living in like Cambodia or Thailand or somewhere like that. And he'd been so bold as to like put his picture with a kid, not a sexual picture, and then twist the image. It literally was like twisted. And for years, they had no idea who it was. All they had was this picture. But then there was a technology which could untwist it. Yeah. And it revealed exactly who he was. And I'm thinking that I feel like these people do. And when they start, I guess it's with a lot of things, like if you start doing something that's wrong, and I'm not necessarily talking about pedophilia, and you get away with it, like I feel like prolific drink drivers, they didn't always just go, oh, hey, I'll drive drunk and I'll do it all the time. It was like they did it once and then they were like, oh, and they got away with it. And then they did it again. And then it's like they get to the point where they're almost like laughing in the faces of everyone because they're just getting away with it all the time. I feel like maybe that's how it got with this guy, because he's like even putting a picture on, like what, like if you're in his position, if you were in his position and you didn't want to be caught, why would you reveal, like even with a twisted picture, that it was still a picture of him originally. Why would you do that? Why the heck would you do that? Like, that's so weird. And maybe, maybe some people are like, we spoke about people becoming a God complex and then becoming pedophiles.
That's
maybe
what
some of them are
to me in that instance, kind of like taunting, like, hey, there's a photo of me, but you still can't catch me.
Yeah. But then maybe there's these pedophiles who then get a God complex as well, because they're like, because obviously these children, especially when you go to these countries where it's either tolerated to some degree. Yeah. Or like it's different somehow. Their culture's different. You would start to feel like, I guess, like you did what you want. These kids, they're gonna be completely submissive to you. Yeah. Because you're a grown adult. telling them what to do. And probably the only other people they've really known in their lives are their family adults who they trust to tell what to do. And maybe these people get in a place where they were pedophiles already, and then they get this God complex because it's like, oh, hey, I can do what I'm like the king of all these people. I do what I want, like, which is really upsetting and distressing. I've been to Thailand, and you see it, like, not extreme. Like, I've not seen it extreme, but I've seen it where there's girls who are obviously of age to consent, but only just. Yeah. And they're walking around with like 60, 70-year-old guys, man. And it's like, wow. Yeah, it's horrible. It's really horrible because there's nothing, don't get me wrong. Of course, there probably is a rare occasion where one of them is into them. Yeah. But you know why they're there. And it's like, it's freaking disgusting, actually, like, when I think about it. But it's like, that's accepted. Like, people walk around like, that's accepted because they are old enough to consent, but they don't want to be doing that, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Like, so strange. Like, so strange what is, accepted in different cultures and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's not against the law here, but you did that here or in America, or you were hanging around places that, gave you a capacity to do that. Mm-hmm. You would be seen as like a terrible human being, a dirty old man, like a disgusting old man or a woman or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's just sort of tolerated over there. And I found that very hard and very odd. Yeah. Like, very odd. But ultimately, I think if we talk and we're reasonable and understand that people have these attractions, as much as we find it, so disgusting. Yeah. We need to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. There needs to be a lot more talk around this, whether it's more understanding and like, hey, I know this is not something you asked for. Like, this is how you can get help. Telling people like, hey, death threats are not the way to deal with this. Talking to children and saying, these are the warning signs. Like, these are things you should watch out for. There needs to be a lot more discussion about this, even though it is a really uncomfortable topic for a lot of people. I do think we need to talk about it if anything's going to get better.
And I think what I've learned as a content creator from this is what we talked about with regards to duty of care. And I guess letting the younger people know, because I don't like to say children, because, technically they are, if they're minors, but also, they're not a kid who can't tie their laces, Yeah. They can be punished by the full force of the law at their age and stuff like that. So I don't want to discredit them, completely, because that's not what I'm trying to do. But I want to make sure that they know that if anything like that happens or was to happen, that I deal with it, and that they would have complete, anonymity.
Absolutely.
In anything like that, or in any case. But yeah, I don't know about the thing I thought about the CRB check. Like, maybe one day that will become a thing, or maybe there'll be maybe there'll be a day where it's like it's taken away from these in this country, from these police chiefs making all the money, and it'll be a central thing. Yeah. That is literally just cost the admin to get it, because then it'd just be like, oh, what, that cost $5? Boom. Yeah, buy it. Because it's like, I wouldn't even give that a second thought. You wouldn't, would you? Oh, it costs $5 to. And there's minors that come in my channel that cost $5 to get one of those. Bam, everyone would just do it. Yeah. But I don't know what it is in the States, but I mean, I can't remember how much it is here. But it's like it's enough to be like, I got to pay for that, like. Mm-hmm. Because obviously, when you get employed, normally the employer pays for it, right? Yeah. So unless you're like self-employed, like as a kids entertainer or something like that, like your employer pays for it. So I don't know about that, but certainly I think what you brought up about making it clear is something really positive that I'm going to walk away with from our conversation today. Yeah. That was really heavy, Nick, but I feel like we've got a lot of positives out of that. And
absolutely.
I'm really, really interested to hear from people that watch this or listen to this, and I want you to try and put emotions aside, if you possibly can. And I know that's not easy on such a tough subject, especially those of you who have children. Yeah. I want you to try and put that aside and give me your views. Give me myself and Nick your views, because I'd be really interested to see what you think about what we've spoken about today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thanks a lot for listening. It's goodbye from me.
Bye, guys.
Thanks again for listening. As always, we really appreciate having you here. If you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe, and be sure to turn on notifications so that you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see more of Nic and Joe, check out our socials, which you can find in the show notes, and stop by our Twitch channels next time we're live. We'd love to say hi to you. But for now, it's goodbye from the both of us, and we'll see you next week.